coming up.
You're talking to a guy and you don't know if they're just talking to you because they're into Asian girls. You have to bond over, you have to go for hot pot or for boba. Let's just be glad that our world is becoming more multicultural everywhere. Like, we will find the singular Chinese restaurant wherever we are in like the middle of Norwegian wilderness. And we're gonna eat there because that's just what they want.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Rice Among Potatoes. Yunan and Vincent has asked me to introduce this episode because, well, I'm better looking. This is part 2 of our conversation with Eli. If you like our content, please like and subscribe. It'll help them pay me in cat treats.
Crazy Rich Asians, probably some of the culture stuff, like, you know, grandma being the most important in the family, like respect your elders, those sort of things I think are very, very true. But then to say all Asians who are wealthy and that come over here live like Crazy Rich Asians, I don't think is a correct representation. I think actually a lot more of the Crazy Rich Asians are very down to earth and are just like you and I.
I think also, like, talking about Crazy Rich Asians, I bet my experience of growing up has been really changed by like social media and like digital media. And like we've seen in the last few years, like so much more media about Asian people or like Asian actors like having roles in big Hollywood movies in a way that like it wouldn't have been the same when you guys were growing up, maybe.
Yeah,
Just be Jackie Chan, no?
Yeah, Jackie
Jet
Chan,
Li.
Jet Li, that was it. But now I guess that's really different. I don't think you were born with a mobile phone, but I feel like you've grown up with a mobile phone in your hand since a young age. Right?
A screen.
A screen,
Yeah.
okay, a screen. And I think that's going to bring a lot of differences to your experience growing up here as an Asian.
I feel like I've seen the shift in like how people view Asians, both in a good way and in a bad way. So like you see the increasing like global tensions with China, and that's like in the last 5-6 years really changed how like people interact with Asian people, especially East Asians. But then also like with K-pop and like movies like Greta Lee, who's like a really big like film director, and like all this like media and culture that's coming out of Asia or coming from like Asian Americans or British Asians. And I think that's like been really cool and really empowering. And I think again it's the difference in like you got to uni and you saw people who looked like you and you were like, teach me about your culture. I got to uni, I saw some people who looked like me, made friends with some of them based on things that weren't just because we were Asian or because we looked similar.
And I guess you already had the option to look up your culture before you got to uni.
There's a degree to which like it means that it's now, I think, a little bit more normal. So like it's less of a, oh, you're Asian, therefore you must be XYZ. It's more just like this is another thing that's like part of my character, my personality. But like because it's so around us now, like because there are big celebrities that are Asian and you don't know them just because they're Asian like you would have with Jackie Chan. It's like you know them because they're like good at this type of thing, or they're like their personality is such and such.
Because here's the thing, like when we were growing up, we didn't have mobile phones, we didn't have social media. So the only Asian representation that we know outside of our family would be the Jackie Chans, the Jet Lis, those stereotypical Asian people. And that's probably why like closer to our age, the people would shout, Jackie Chan, and that's what they would do. But I feel like for the modern generation now, with phones, there's so much more opportunity to see similar Asian people. So you'd feel like there's more representation for Asians. Whereas for us, we only got that from Western TV.
Do you remember Power Rangers?
Yeah.
Do you remember?
I love go Power Rangers.
Yeah, exactly. But when they took their mask off, right, there was the one Asian dude, there was the one black dude. Like the black Power Ranger was black.
Yeah.
And that was just apparently accepted at the time. There was an Asian Ranger, and then the rest were just white. And then that was...
There was a woman, there was a girl, the pink.
Yeah,
the pink.
Yeah.
So pink women, that's another like...
Yeah, exactly. It's so stereotypical. And then that was it. That was like that's all I was fed.
Yeah.
I felt like.
But then the times have changed now though, because I feel like younger people nowadays would see that and be like, hang on, that's not
quite right.
We're at a point where so much of the representation is so performative and so virtual signaling. And you like have people casting people of color in like roles that I don't want to say don't make sense, but it's like,
Have we gone too far?
Yeah, or not even have we gone too far, but it's like the problem that people have with like hiring for diversity reasons, and then you almost feel like worse as a person of color because you're like, do other people think that I'm only here because we have to fill the quota? We want to hope that like when they were doing the casting, it was like they got that role because they were the perfect fit for that role, but then you get like the people who are still like not like maybe like a little bit racist, and they're like looking at that and they're like, oh, but you don't deserve the role, you only got the role because you're black, or you only got that position because you're Asian, and they want to fill that quota. And I think it's a really difficult line. Like, I think it's really good that we have all this representation, and I think it's good that we have more actors of color or like more people of color on our screens.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be putting people just like in, like, we don't want to just be making movies about Asians where they're like in China. Like, we want to see the fact that like we live in a city like London and there's people who look like people from all over the world.
So multicultural.
And like, it's brilliant. But then there's that degree to which like, is this just like performative or virtue signaling?
I'm just glad to see movement from there. I haven't thought about have we gone too far or how much of it is for show. But for me, some representation is better than no representation.
Yeah, I think any representation is positive.
There's this phenomenon, it's called, so we've heard of the glass ceiling, right, for like women in like working fields or whatever. And there's this thing that people are talking about called like the glass cliff, and how you put a person who's a person of color and a woman in a position where you've already set it up so that they're going to fail. Because the situation is such that like the car's already going off the cliff. Like, you can't stop the car.
Yeah.
You put someone for diversity reasons, or like someone who is a minority of any kind, you put them as the driver of the car and you go, oh, they're doing this thing, they're responsible for the fact that the car is driving off the cliff.
So it's a scapegoat.
Scapegoat representation, I would agree with you guys, is like a really good thing, but it's also scary because you'll see, I don't know, an example of like a woman being put in a position as like a dean of a university when like something like is already going to happen to the university, like there's like financial problems or whatever, and then that person gets blamed on it.
I saw recently there's discussions around should 007, James Bond, the new James Bond, should they be female? And I think a lot of actors, past and present, have come out and said, I think Dame Helen Mirren is one that comes and said, no, I don't think James Bond should be female. I think that should stay as a guy. And that's not being sexist or stereo casting or whatever. That's just saying, well, that's what the character is and we should stick to it.
I think it'll be minority though. Like if you take let's say an Asian female let's say you got the role of James Bond, and I think a majority of people would be, do you know what, like, well done, I want to see how this goes. There'll only be the minority who said, oh, she only got there because they want diversity.
Yeah, sure.
And the glass cliff as well. I think most of the time it's like, okay, they've got there because of their merits, and it's only the very few minority that would put someone on that glass cliff. It's just being able to know that, see that, sense that, and actually speak up for someone that you see in that situation, right?
And help each other out. Can I just say, super glad last year when Michelle Yeoh won the Oscars. That was proper good, wasn't it?
Because that's representation, right? And
I think the recognition and getting the recognition she deserves.
And like a lot more Korean movies and series, they're getting awarded as well.
Yeah,
because they are genuinely good. I watch a lot of Korean dramas and Korean movies, and like the storyline, the way they're filmed, it's very good.
And like you mentioned, K-pop, like Blackpink is huge right now around the world.
You were growing up, probably like Japanese culture was the big Asian culture around.
Anime, yeah.
And so it was like anime and like weebs and like that type of thing. And I feel like to an extent, Korean culture and Chinese culture have like just fallen prey to the same problem where you just get like a certain type of person liking this thing as a sort of like fetish, or like as a like I don't know if you've heard the term like Koreaboo, but like people who become obsessed with the culture because it's different and it's something that's like exotic and oriental. And then especially when we're seeing like a lot of the hype around things like K-pop it's things that are being produced in Korea or in China or Japan that are then being imported to the West. And so like as someone who isn't necessarily like we've talked about this, where I feel like I'm half British, half Chinese or whatever, like I'm not sure how much of like that culture really represents me. This comes up like when dating, where like you're talking to a guy and you don't know if they're just talking to you because they're into Asian girls, and that's like a really weird place to be in.
My sister gets that a lot.
Yeah,
she gets that at work, and she's like, "Oh, they're only talking to me because I'm Asian," and I'm like, "Oh, get over yourself."
No, but I think it's true, because then it's like you'll look at like you'll have been talking to a guy or whatever, and then you'll see that they're like dating someone new, and it's like another Asian girl, and it's like, okay, like how much am I just like representing like Korean culture to you, even though I'm not Korean? Or like how much am I like just in your mind like a sort of substitute for Blackpink? And like how much am I like really my own person? Especially when I feel like I come from both of these cultures and like neither one represents me, and it feels like sometimes because of the way I look, people assume me to be fully representative of something that like is only part of who I am.
Even though there is more representation out there, we are not representing every single person.
Yeah.
And get to know people for who they are, not who you think they may be.
And that's why I think this podcast is great, because I don't think there's a lot of like British Asian discourse. I don't know how much you guys felt this with watching something like Crazy Rich Asians, but there's like a lot of discourse around being Asian American, which I find to be a really different experience.
You know what Nathan Boys?
No.
They're in America, and they used to do like food reviews, Asian food reviews, but now their channel has switched to talking about sort of Asian Americans' experience in Asia. And I feel like they're going on a bit of a Western bashing in Asia, maybe because it's so bad in America, I don't know. So that's part of the reason why that I wanted to explore. Is it like that in the UK?
I don't think it's the same problems. I think Americans have more of a sense of detachment from any like other world cultures. And so I think for them, it's like a lot more like to be American is something really distinct.
Yeah.
And therefore the other cultures that are like there in the background, it's like a way more complex relationship than maybe here. Like British culture is so like stable, then it's like okay for me to bring my own culture, because it's like I get to have both in a way that like maybe is less like controversial.
I think like an Asian American versus an Asian British. An Asian American will be more American, or feel like they need to be more American, just because everything in America is like we're the center of the world. Like I win the NBA champs, I'm world champ. Like, NBA's in the US.
It's crazy.
The World Series.
You're American champs, right?
The World Series.
The World Series
for baseball.
For baseball, exactly.
Canada plays in baseball too, so it's like North American.
But it's not the world. Right?
Yeah.
But in the UK, like, I guess the UK don't think that they're the center of the world. So actually, being a British Asian, I feel like I can be more Asian and less British.
Or I think the British maybe allows you to be more Asian. I don't know. I think I did a year in Toronto for my master's. And so that was a really different experience. Because we think that London is somewhere that's like super diverse. And then you go to Toronto and it's like, no, actually, you've never seen diversity. What was really cool about being in Toronto is because there's less of like a stable culture in Canada, because the country's so new, the food is incredible. Like Chinatown in London is kind of small. It's like two or three streets. Chinatown in Toronto is a whole neighborhood, and it's full of different like Asian cultures. It's got like some of the best Vietnamese Thai food I've ever had in my life. But it's also different because then you're like in one way more accepted because you're more part of the whatever majority, or part of like a bigger diaspora, because there's just more Asian people than there are in London. But then it's also weird because you're more pigeonholed into being Asian. Yeah, I speak Chinese, and like I've been to China a bunch, and I feel like I'm like integrated in the culture to an extent. But also like I don't know what's cool in China at all. Like I'm not up to date. But it doesn't impede my sense of identity.
I've got cousins in Canada and Australia actually. And like going through his Instagram, he's got so many Asian friends. Like they'll play golf with Asian friends, and I'm like, honestly, I wouldn't even know how to get 5 Asian friends. Like
I've got 2 in this room.
2 in this room.
We've had 5 on the podcast already.
We have.
Okay, so we have 5 Asian friends.
Fine. It's more difficult to find the Asian community here. I feel maybe I'm just in the wrong communities, but like your point about Toronto, we went to visit them and it was in Richmond, and Richmond is like very Chinese.
You know how Spotify does like Wrapped every year? And so like a few years ago they did one which was like your listening location.
Yeah.
So it was like where in the world do most people listen like you? And I'd listened to loads of Mando Pop that year.
Yeah.
And then my location was Richmond, Canada, because apparently everyone in Richmond just is all like Mandarin speakers.
Yeah. All the like the malls and stuff, like Asian restaurants, Asian opticians, Asian doctors.
But I think it's weird because there's a part of me that like I really like hanging out with Asian people. But sometimes I find that you have to bond over, you have to go for hot pot or for boba, or you have to go for like karaoke or go do like a photo booth. And you feel like because of your shared culture and you're abroad, you have to like do the Asian things.
Yeah.
And then you don't really get to like do all the other things that you also might enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And you kind of get like, I have some quite close friends. One is Korean, South Korean, one is Malaysian Chinese. And every time I see them in London, I feel like I only know like half of their lives because we only ever talk about the Asian side of our lives because we're like, I want to express this with you because you understand it. But then actually in a way where like maybe with my friends from uni, I feel like they might know like 90% of who I am. With my Asian friends, it's like, oh no, you really just know like the Chinese part of me.
So I think even your close friends actually don't know the full you.
It's nice because my closest friend is from Lithuania and moved here for university. And so we both have this problem and therefore it doesn't feel like then it like isn't a problem because it's like, oh, you have your life in Lithuania. I can try and understand and I want to learn about, but I'm never going to understand esoterically, like emotionally, in the same way that he's never going to be able to understand like what I really feel when I talk about being Chinese.
I'm definitely like that as well. Like no one really knows me, probably not even my family. My wife is probably the closest to knowing the true me. That's because if I meet let's say a white person, like they're probably not going to know like what's a very Chinese dish. They're not going to want to go hot pot with me. Well, actually they might, some do, but we won't bond.
But you'll be introducing hot pot to them.
Yeah. And so it's a very different experience. And given that we're so mixed, there's no one exactly the same as us. Like even you two from the same family, you're actually quite different because you were born and raised here. You still grew up in China a little bit. So to find someone like you is very difficult. And that's why I think this podcast hopefully will expose more people and people might relate to, Eli, Yunnan, Vince. I'm like them. I'm not alone. Like actually, my friend has watched this podcast. Maybe next time they're going to ask me about hot pot or something.
Everyone we've had is so different so far. Yeah, we all look the same. We might sound similar, some of us.
I think we sound surprisingly different.
I think we do.
You sound much posher than your brother.
Yeah.
Does she?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of vocal training. I'm kind of a singer. When I did voice lessons, my teacher would try and explain like where to place my tongue or like how to move my mouth. And I could tell that it was harder because there are still certain words, even though I was born in England and I grew up here, that like there's still ways in which I move my mouth that are influenced by the fact that I speak Mandarin, and you like can't escape that.
The word the, I usually say the.
Sounds the same to me.
Rather than the, so DE rather than THE, because I don't put my tongue between my teeth.
Oh.
I just do tongue at the top of or this and that rather than this and that.
But then I also think like in certain ways it totally doesn't matter, right?
No.
Because like I find that I'll have pronunciations in my vocabulary that are now slightly Canadian. And it's like, so you know how like when British people say water, it's either water or water. So you either say like a hard T, like a T, or like you miss the T completely. But Americans and Canadians go water with like the D sound.
Water.
Yeah, water.
Water.
And it's like a D sound. And I'll notice that I do that with words with T in the middle now.
So I just say,
I do that sometimes too. If I'm speaking to like, if I'm in the US or speaking to someone from like an international school, I sometimes go a little bit like American.
How do you say Toronto?
Toronto.
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 You're in the UK, don't you?
Yeah. But they say Toronto.
Toronto.
Yeah. So I don't know, because it's one of those things where it's like, let's just be glad that our world is becoming more multicultural everywhere, even in a way that isn't related necessarily to like identity.
And I think social media is helping that. And I'm really big on this, which is when we were growing up, social media was like MySpace and Facebook. And it was like, it was social media to the extent that you were interacting with your friends, but it wasn't the social media as we know it now with YouTube, with Instagram, with Xiaohongshu, where people have an audience which they are broadcasting to.
Yeah. It's a double-edged sword though with that, like social media, because on the one hand, like MySpace, that sort of thing, for those old enough to remember. Do you remember MySpace?
No, not at all.
It's basically like Facebook, but just dumb. You only see your friends. Okay. You don't get a feed.
Okay.
So, like, you only see who you're friends with, right? But with social media nowadays, like, you get the feed that feeds you so much other stuff. So, one side of the sword is good because you get to see a lot more. You get to learn a lot more. But then on the other side, you only see what you like. And I think it can be in a way that makes you almost less diverse, because my dad, he's quite pro-China. And I have cousins who are very against China. And I feel social media is part of the reason why they're so separate, because if you see one post that's pro-China, you're going to get a lot more. And then you can get on the other side. So actually, social media, yes, joins people, but it also divides.
I think that is true. I had a friend who told me this 10 years ago. So, you should stop being on Reddit all the time. Like, why? Because it's an echo chamber. You just see what you want to see. You're going to the same subreddits. You're seeing what you want to see, but it means you're getting the same context day after day. You're not getting anything new.
The other point on social media would be to say, like, it can be like an illusion, right? Like, it can mean that you think that you're seeing these like reels of like China, but you've never been to China. And so you don't actually know what the people are like, or you have no experience of like what the landscape looks like that hasn't been like heavily edited. It's even scarier with AI, but like that's a totally other issue. I think just like even with like seeing influencers and stuff, I think a lot more people, for good and for bad, feel like they know places or people or cultures or things when they don't. And I'm like, no, we should all just like, instead of consuming like Chinese media, let's all just like go visit or like go to like communities, like talk to real people.
We're changing. I feel like my parents, correct me if I'm wrong, my parents' generation is more materialistic. It's, I want to buy a house, buy a car, those sort of things. But I feel like for our generation, it's more experiences. I want to go see this place, travel this place. And I feel like the more people do that, the more cultures they'll interact with, learn about, and see, and better understanding the world has of each other, then these sort of misconceptions are then erased.
Totally true. I think also like something that happens in Oxford a lot is you get loads of big groups of Chinese tourists who walk around and they don't really know what's going on, and they're not trying to like engage with like the culture in any way. And they're sort of just like taking photos of things and taking photos of themselves, and then like getting in their tour bus and then going to like Cambridge or going to Bath or whatever. Experiencing is really important, but only when you're doing that like critically, and you're doing it with like actually trying to like engage with people rather than just like seeing the sights.
I don't know if you've been to Spain, like Costa Dorada or whatever, and you go there and everyone's advertising chicken nuggets and chips, like fish and chips. I was like, no, I want your like calamari, your salchichon, your paella or whatever. But then actually you do get some people who go to places and just want their own comfort, and that's not really traveling to me.
But when we go on holiday with mom and dad, all they want to eat is Chinese food. Like, we will find the singular Chinese restaurant wherever we are in like the middle of Norwegian wilderness and we're gonna eat there because that's just what they want.
We did that too, actually. I was traveling with my wife and two of her friends, and by like, we went for a week, and by like day 7 or 8, we were like, I want some rice. Like, give me some rice.
I feel like I crave noodles.
But are you noodles or rice?
Noodles. We don't eat much rice at home. Yeah. That's what always made me, that was the other thing. Growing up, I don't know if you guys had this experience, but when I was younger, a lot of the Chinese people who came to the UK were from the South or Hong Kong. And so I felt really different to everyone, because even though there were people at school who were like Chinese, they like came from a place where I didn't speak their language. And then
That's a really good
Cantonese.
point, actually.
And I think this is the like noodles versus rice, or like the mian shi versus like mi
Yeah.
like debate, where it's like that was really strange because you're like in a place where you're like technically you're like these people, but actually like China is so big that there's so much culture, and like even outside of the north-south divide, there's so many different like communities and cultures within it.
That's so true, because like because I'm Cantonese,
Okay.
so a lot of, I think, people from Hong Kong came over to the UK because it was a colony, so there was a lot bigger Cantonese representation in the UK. That's something that I guess Westerners might not understand. They just see Chinese as Chinese, but actually we're quite different. And the Chinese that they know, like the takeaways and all that, that's actually very Cantonese influenced, adopted for the Western palate.
Yes.
But then nowadays, since China has economy has boomed and a lot more sort of mainland China people have come over, you get a lot more of the Sichuans, the hot pots, which is actually more China, and all like the noodles. That's all China.
You can see this in how like Chinese food availability has really changed.
Yeah.
Because like you say, in the past, it was a lot of like Cantonese inspired dishes, like that type of palette where it's like a little bit lighter, it's a little bit sweeter, it's way more rice. Whereas now it's a lot more common, like even in Oxford, which is not a big place, like there's probably 4 or 5 places that do like Sichuan like food cuisine, and it's like, okay, like who needs this much spice to be honest? But also like I think it's cool, but it's like strange to see because it's like really shifted.
But even when I went to China, our maid, she's from Shanghai. So
hold on, did you say you have a maid?
We have a maid in China.
Okay, that's kind of normal in China.
Normal.
Everyone has like a house.
So she was from Shanghai, so actually a lot of the food that she would make and how she presents the food is very Shanghainese. But then we're in like the Shenzhen area, so the food there is again very different. So there's so much variety, but I guess what we see in the UK is like a
The
very
tiniest
small
bit,
amount.
So I guess everything we're talking about is what you're seeing is a tiny amount.
Yeah, we are just 3 people of probably the like hundreds of thousands of Chinese people.
Well, Billy.
Oh, I was going to say like in the
Oh,
UK.
okay.
Yeah. But I don't know, Mum has that funny anecdote where she says like when Mum and Dad first moved to the UK, people thought that they were Japanese because there was a much bigger Japanese population here, like back in probably like the 90s. And then that's like really shifted now, where it's like when you look East Asian, people assume you're Chinese. Like that is the assumption. People assume you're a tourist. There's a really good book actually. I can't really remember who it's by, but it's called I Am Not a Tourist, and it's a book about being British Chinese that's just come out on hardback. This isn't sponsored, but I like picked it up from the shop the other day. And it's weird because now the assumption is that you are a tourist if you look this way. Like wherever you're walking around, especially in somewhere like London or Oxford, where it is like touristy places.
Or student.
Student, yeah, but even like not so much. Not so much as just like, oh, you're a tourist.
I've spoken about this before. I feel much more comfortable calling up call centers and asking them stuff than going into, like, for a bank. I much prefer calling them up and asking stuff than going to a bank branch.
Because you sound British.
Because I sound British enough. And I feel like that is a big win for me. Whereas when you go to a shop, every so often you get the kind of like...
Yeah, people are just like assuming that you're not supposed to be there, or like you don't need that service because you don't live here or whatever.
It's just a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, and it's not like, it's definitely like the minority of experiences still. Like most people that you interact with are like really kind and really open.
But it's just, it happens. Yeah. And every time it happens, it makes you feel less good.
Just thinking when the last time I walked into a bank was.
Yeah, I don't know why you're banking so much.
It's making too much money here, that's why.
Yeah.
Thank you for staying all the way to the end of this episode. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. It will really help them pay me with cat treats. We hope to see you on the next episode.